It's time for a new episode of Sit Down with the Supt. In this episode, an update on in-person learning as more and more students head back into classrooms. Plus, the latest on plans to get vaccinations for teachers and school staff. And back in action, on the court and on the field, what's being done to keep players and coaches safe as they return to competition. And now your host, Craig Bernbach, and Superintendent Mike Merlino.
Hello and welcome to Sit Down with the Supt. I'm Craig Bernbach, the Communications Manager here at Evergreen Public Schools, and your host for Sit Down with the Supt, the show where Superintendent Mike Merlino takes time to give you important updates and information involving EPS students, staff, and schools. And once again, we have a lot of updates and information to share with you. We're happy to report that starting this week, all of our students have the opportunity to take part in in-person learning. Our kindergartners, they've been in a hybrid-style learning environment since September. They were joined by the rest of the elementary school grades back in January. Then in mid-February, we welcomed middle schoolers back into the buildings. And just this week, our high school freshmen had their orientations on Monday and Tuesday, and that was followed by the return of 10th, 11th, and 12th graders this week. So all students are now able to receive in-person learning 2 days a week in all our schools. Now, Wednesdays, they remain as a remote on-demand learning day. And of course, the remote learning option continues for those families who choose to stay in remote. Now it's time to welcome in Superintendent Mike Merlino. As always, Mike, thank you so much for joining me and taking time to answer some of these questions. And it is another busy week. Just mentioned it earlier. This week, we welcome back high school students into a hybrid learning atmosphere, so back into the buildings. That has to feel good.
Feels great, yeah. So this week, we welcomed, we're basically at the point where we have all kids K-12 back in the system. Obviously, we want to get kids back fully, but we're still following all safety protocols and rules, and just honestly happy that we've got all of our kids back. We're hopeful we could make this happen in March, but we've had such good the last several weeks with respect to cases in the county. We hit the numbers and we were ready to roll, and our buildings have done a great job preparing, and we got our kids back. We're real excited about it.
It was great that the first day that we had scheduled that the high schoolers might be eligible to come in, hit the numbers, high schoolers back in, so that's a great feeling.
I mean, I think my hope has always been that whenever the numbers the cases got to the point where we needed them to be, that we would be ready, we wouldn't have any delays. So I'm like I said, I'm very thankful, very grateful for our administrative staff, our teaching staff, our classified staff, all of our folks doing all the work so that we were ready right at the point in time. So we kind of did, from the perspective of getting to the point where we could bring kids back for high school anyway, we kind of nailed it. So I'm excited about it.
Of course, we've talked about it. We've had kids in schools, kindergarten starting in September in a hybrid learning atmosphere. And now we have all the kids back in. I know that you and our board members are in constant contact with staff members and families. When you talk to families, how are they feeling about how the hybrid system is working?
I mean, I think everyone is just kind of relieved. Their students, their kids have been through a lot. You know, I mean, it's been a year. We're almost a year into this. And it's just been real stressful for kids, and the isolation and being away. So what I hear is just the gratitude that kids are back. They get to see their friends. It's not exactly, there are safety protocols. We don't have group hugs. We don't have these kinds of things
Virtual
happening.
Virtual high fives. A lot
Virtual
of that.
high fives, and there's social distancing. But being able to get back to school, see familiar faces, see the faces of their teachers, or see at least the eyes of their teachers, to maybe be able to get back into some activities now that we've got activities occurring in our high schools as well. I just, everybody's just so thankful and happy. And I've said it many times, every group that we went through with kindergarten, first, second, and third, fourth, and fifth, there's a little bit of anxiety from staff members, from kids that haven't been in this situation for so long. But then as soon as they got there, it all just clicks again. Why I'm here is to support kids and try to help kids learn. And it maybe takes just a little while, but the teachers are so happy to be back as well. And so it's a good thing.
You talked about safety protocols, and the safety protocols are the same at every level, but students are different.
Yeah.
High schoolers and kindergartens are a little bit different. What kind of things, has there have to been any real differences in preparing for the high school kids to come back, safety protocol wise, and how did maybe having the elementary school kids in for a few months here help this process?
Yeah, the protocols are the protocols, right? So you have mask wearing, you have social distancing of 6 feet, you have hand cleansing, you've got all of these protocols. You mentioned how have we kind of helped each other throughout. I'm very thankful for district office staff that we've had logistics folks that have been working from the beginning with what we call kind of the captains at the schools that lead the work around routing kids in and out, the attestations, so the signatures or the parent notification that their kids are healthy, whether it's social distancing, setting up classrooms. We've had administrative staff at the district office work with building staff through that. But we were fortunate enough to have, we started elementary, small with kindergarten, we were able to grow with that. Then we get to middle school, we've been able to share what we learned in elementary school with our middle school folks. Now we're able to share from our middle school folks what they've learned with our high school folks. So it's just worked out really well. That it's kind of been a little bit of a slow roll in and given ourselves the opportunity to share what we've learned from each other. At the same time, the protocols they really are the protocols. I think the biggest differences you might see are like high school has had in the past open campuses. They've been able to leave campus for lunch. Well, we've got closed campuses now. They're running 3 lunches in schools instead of maybe 2 or even 1 lunch. So, you don't have the same socialization that you typically would have. And then within the lunchrooms, elementary, they're eating in their classrooms, socially distanced. In the secondary, particularly high school, because they're not leaving campus, they're finding places in gyms, they're finding spaces in the cafeteria, kind of wherever they can do it to make sure that we're socially distanced. There are kind of little bits of changes there, but for the most part, it's kind of looks the same. And I think there is always concern, well, can younger kids handle wearing masks all day? Will the older kids wear masks all day? Because they're maybe going to want to find other alternatives, they try whatever they can. But the feedback that we get is that the kids are doing great with the masks, are doing really well with the social distancing. I've been out in the schools and observed a lot of it, and our staff's doing a tremendous job. So it's worked out really well so far.
Yeah, I'm on a lot of those meetings with the COVID captains every Wednesday, and it's great to see our staff members that at maybe the elementary school, they've already kind of dealt with a certain situation. They get to help out the secondary schools and say, oh, this is what we did, and that collaboration and sharing is really helpful.
I mean, I think in this whole situation, the COVID situation, you might think, well, there's so much isolation and you don't have the ability to communicate, but honestly, we'll communicate, I think, better coming out of this, because all you need to do is know how to set up a Zoom. As long as I can set up a Zoom, I can meet with anybody almost any time I need to. So these kind of conversations that you're talking about, they're broader conversations. In the past, maybe we'd bring people in, you'd bring principals in, or you'd bring associate principals in. Now we have these large meetings, we can break out into small groups within the Zoom. So I think we even have better communication than what we've had in the past. And I think we've also learned we can communicate with parents differently and more readily and easily, whether it's through conferences or IEP meetings or whatever it is. It's just, we have learned a lot, I think, in this situation, and we need to grow from what we've learned and use those things as we move into the future.
Now, I know that some districts are talking about expanding in-person learning maybe to 4 days. Where are we as a district when it comes to that kind of expansion talk?
So we've looked at that. What we have governing what happens in schools right now are the guidelines from the governor and the State Department of Health. And the primary rule that determines this, at least for Evergreen, is this 6-foot rule. So there's a 6-foot rule in effect, which means you're doing everything you can to remain 6 feet socially distanced between yourself, another student, or a staff member, and limiting the amount of time that we're close. Now, when you have a 6-foot rule like that, what that means is there's only so many individuals you can have in a classroom. And the schools that we have in our district weren't built for a 6-foot rule. They were built for what we've always had, class sizes in the 20s and even into the low 30s. So knowing that we've got some other districts that are considering this, in our district we've determined that really the square footage that we have in a classroom, we can probably get maybe 15, 16 kids in a space and adhere to the 6-foot rule with desks and the other things that you need to have in a classroom. Which would mean for us, first of all, you have to have space available. Do we have a lot of empty classrooms in our buildings that we could potentially expand if we were considering doing that, A. And B, if you look at class sizes that we have, if you tried to bring everybody in, how many classes do you have that are over that 16, let's say, limit? And then theoretically you'd need to hire additional teachers in order to make that happen. So I'd asked our elementary folks to take a look at that. What would that mean to us? And so if you were looking at K through 5, just K through 5, ignore middle school and high school, we would need to add somewhere in the range of about 120 teachers. We probably have in total elementary teachers, let's say 700-800 teachers. So it's like a significant increase in teaching staff. That's really not something that's logistically, first of all, you have to have the space to put the teachers. Second of all, you have to have the teachers available. Right now we're having a hard time even sometimes getting subs and making, we always have teachers in the classroom, but to find 120 teachers to make that switch. And then at the same time, it's been it's been a year that's been very challenging in that, we've had to go through various schedules throughout the year, and I think we have some students that maybe have already had 1 or 2 or even as many as 3 different teachers this year. It would mean a whole nother look at that. So our effort is in working with the Department of Health, working with OSPI, the governor's office, on just helping folks understand what is really, at this point, the last rule, let's say, that kind of gets in the way of kids coming back fully from our perspective. And then not to dictate, we obviously can't dictate the science, but we can share the information around what it is that's that kind of the last thing that needs to happen to allow us to move forward. In our conversations with Dr. Melnick and OSPI, they're having conversations at the state level around the 6-foot rule, looking at studies, looking at other countries, looking at other states, to see whether 3 feet is something that makes sense, or what kind of case spread is there in those types of situations. And I think the belief is that there's a chance that could get relaxed this year, maybe later in the spring, but I think that everybody's pretty comfortable that it will likely be changed by the time we get to next fall, so that next fall we're very hopeful and excited to come back in a 5-day-a-week, what does school normally look like, and really hopeful that that's going to be the case. From my perspective, it's trying to help people understand it's not really the school district that can say, hey, we're going to go to 4 days right now. There's a lot of conversations that occur because you can't just ignore state guidelines around this, and then
and safety protocols are what they are until they're changed.
Correct.
So that's where we are.
Correct. And so I think as more vaccinations occur, and we learn more about what's happening, and then as cases continue to decline, I think we're real hopeful by the time we get to next fall we'll be where we need to be, and maybe even this spring.
You mentioned vaccines. That has changed. We've gotten big news 2 days in a row. The big news really is that Washington is now, educators are now eligible to be vaccinated in Washington. Governor Inslee made that change. I know you and the other superintendents were advocating for that all along.
Yeah, we've I think as long as a couple months ago, myself and Dr. Webb from Vancouver sent a letter to the governor advocating for employees to be at the top of the list. Ultimately, President Biden put out some guidance yesterday that Governor Inslee then reacted to and said, okay, now all school employees are moved up into the current round. And I've already heard anecdotally of a lot of teachers, a lot of staff members reaching out on their own and working to get appointments for those vaccinations. We had already started conversations with Dr. Melnick, with Kaiser, with Peace Health, with Legacy, and even Providence, and looking at various ways we could try to distribute vaccinations as quickly as possible. when that news came out yesterday, I was just on a Zoom call with a number of local superintendents and representatives of those healthcare providers. And I think there's going to be news really quickly. I think that it's encouraging. Governor Inslee's action yesterday is going to accelerate things, and we're working through the logistics, and I'm hopeful that really pretty quickly we're going to start to get our folks vaccinated.
Right. Stay tuned. Information will be coming.
Yes.
And we'll get it to you as quickly as possible.
Yes.
Another thing that moved forward is you've been advocating for sports to return to the field, and we have sports going for a few weeks, but people want to know, how's it going? Has there been any safety issues so far?
We have not had any safety issues that I'm aware of. We started initially with golf, tennis, and cross country. And then when we went into phase 2, we were able to expand into, I think, slow pitch softball I saw some pictures of the first events on our newly turfed softball fields. Tremendous. Great to see that. Volleyball is occurring. Last Friday, we had our first football games. Union, Mountain View, Evergreen, and Heritage, all 4 won their first games last week. It was kind of a strange opening weekend of football, February 26th, just like every year, right? But very, very appreciative of the fact that kids are having the opportunity to do this. So really, yeah, we have not had, I'm not saying that there won't be things that may or may not come up, but through week 1 and through halfway through week 2, of those sports, now the other golf and tennis and soccer's playing as well. So I mean, everything's going really well. It's awesome that our kids are getting opportunities. We're going to get to spring break. We'll come back to spring break. Middle school's going to have access to track. We'll have middle school track in the spring. So we're starting to feel more normal. We're not normal yet, but we're getting there, right?
Thank you, Mike, for sitting down with us and sharing this information. So much going on. And Mike, while it's hard to find silver linings during this pandemic, people have stepped up and created systems and programs that aren't just helping students out now, but can really help students and staff even when school gets back to what we consider normal. One such program is an awesome targeted tutoring program where Union High School students are reaching out to help elementary and middle school students stay on track.
But now we're going to break it down even more.
That's Union High School senior Astoria Moore helping out a group of Burnt Bridge Creek students.
What's 500 minus 20?
Actually, she's more than just helping out, she's tutoring them in math.
So I just want them to be the most comfortable with math that they possibly can be.
This is all part of a targeted tutoring program that pairs top Union High School students with elementary and middle school students for online sessions.
What we're doing is we're writing down 494.
There's about 20 really committed tutors right now.
The idea started with Kelsey Burris, Union High School's STEM Academy advisor.
So here you go. We were able to start actually at Frontier Middle School with this focused tutoring program where we work with the teachers to identify students that need help, and then they help provide our high school students with activities.
Osvaldo, who is your math teacher this year?
Burris and other staff members are there to advise and monitor the actual tutoring sessions, but it's the high school students who are really managing the program.
So now where are we going to put the 10 to add it correctly? I guess it's really nice when, you get the actual response from the kids and it seems like they're actually learning something.
And this program is a win-win as the younger students and older students are both benefiting.
Bye, thank you for helping me even though I was behind.
They're learning. Yes, their assignments have really changed. They get a lot more things correct because they have the tutor that's helping them.
I guess it's been an opportunity to improve my communication just in general.
What is 4 times 3? Do you guys know?
But this isn't just about the lesson plans. This is about life lessons, mentoring, and just connecting.
The kids are definitely asking more questions than they would in a class with a teacher because they're less shy of these high schoolers. They think of them as their sibling, as mentors.
Oh, I had the biggest smile on my face. It's such a big compliment for people to be like, oh, I can relate to you, or that helped me out so much.
Now, while this program was born during the pandemic, the hope is that it will continue to grow even when we get back to what we consider more normal school.
Just yesterday, we opened it up to even the dual immersion program because we got a Spanish tutor. So every week, we just keep growing and growing.
Good job, guys. I think making an impact on people is the best possible legacy you could ever leave.
And we'll see you next week, hopefully. It's great to see all of you.
Mike, I really enjoyed meeting those kids, and I got to tell you, it's awesome to see students helping students, right?
It's great. Love it. Love seeing the kids do that. Also, say I appreciate Mr. Burris for kind of coming up with the idea to make this happen. He was very influential on my 2 older kids that graduated from Union, so great program.
Yeah, it was really awesome. And Mike, of course, I always say thank you for doing this. I know it really helps our families and our staff keep up to date what's going on in the district. And we want you to stay up to date. Please connect with us on social media. Here's where you can find us.
On Facebook, you'll find us at facebook.com/evergreenps. On Instagram, it's evergreen_public_schools. On Twitter, follow us at twitter.com/evergreenps. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/evergreen school district. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. And on LinkedIn, you'll find us at linkedin.com/school/evergreenps.